So I'm just going to change this country name to Canada. I'm going to change it here as well. Now let's say Canada changes its capital to Vancouver. So Canada dot capital city equals city, and we're going to give it Vancouver, and the country is going to be Canada. Alright, so let's say we want to change this name, country, to Canada. Canada, and I want to make sure I change it everywhere it's used. Alright, and after doing that, the error should go away. Alright, now I want to add the deinitializers so we can see when these are deinitialized. So name is being deinitialized. And I'm going to do the same down here. Make it one line so we have enough space for everything. Alright, now I'm going to say Canada, capital city equals, let's say they want to change the capital city to Vancouver. So Vancouver, and the country is going to be Canada. Alright, so when we change Canada's capital city to Vancouver, Ottawa is deinitialized because we're not using it anymore. So one thing you might notice is that if we take off unowned, we get the same result. Ottawa is being deinitialized. Canada is not being deinitialized. And I can put it back. It's going to give me the same result. So what is the point of unowned in this circumstance? And one thing to note is that I'm using playground, so there isn't a scope that ends, and therefore there isn't a moment in time when we get to see what happens when we want to deallocate Canada, for example. So I'm going to actually create a scope and wrap this in a function. I'm going to call it scope, pop it in, or maybe foo. And I'm going to call this function, and you will see the difference. So we're going to create this as a let constant, and there we go. Now if I take off unowned, you will see now, even though the scope ended, we have a strong reference cycle, so Canada will not be deallocated when we need it to be deallocated. However, when I use unowned let, Canada will be deallocated. Alright, and so I'm going to run through with Sketch to show you how this is being read and what's going on. So the country class is defined, city class is defined, the function foo is defined, and then the function foo is called on line 33. So the compiler execution jumps to 28 and executes the right side of the assignment first, creates an instance of the country, and gives it a name. So the compiler's execution jumps to line 28, executes the right side of the assignment first, and sees the country initializer being called, passing in the name Canada and the capital name Ottawa. So the compiler jumps up to the init function, passes in those, line 11 is run, the country's name is given the value of Canada, and because this is an implicitly unwrapped optional, it defaults to nil at the beginning, so it has a value at the beginning. So the name has a value and the capital city has a value. Therefore, an instance of the country is created, and the self property can therefore be used right here. After line 11 is run, an instance of the country is created and memory is allocated. So then line 12 is run, and on the right side of the assignment, the city initializer is called, and it's passing in the name, capital name, and the country as self. The compiler jumps over here for the initializer of the city and passes in the city name, which was Ottawa, and the country, which was named Canada, and assigns a value of name to the name here, and assigns the country as Canada here. So cities properties all have values, and then it's allocated memory. And it references the country. So city holds an unowned reference to the country, and I'm marking it as purple accordingly. And then the left side of this assignment is run. So the city is assigned as the capital city for the country instance. So then the country holds a reference to the city. Now that the country initializer is finished running, the compiler jumps back to line 28 and assigns the country instance to the name Canada. And then we print Canada's capital city is called Ottawa right here. And then we're assigning a different city, and so Ottawa is being deinitialized. So now we reach line 30, and the right side of the assignment is executed first. The city instance is created, and it has a country property of Canada. So country now points to this instance, which has the name of Canada. After this instance has been initialized, then the capital city for the instance associated with the name Canada, right here, becomes Vancouver. So this one points instead to this one, and because there are no strong references to this instance of Ottawa, it is deallocated. And then when a scope ends, the instances associated with the named constants and variables that are created within that scope, those names point to nil instead of those instances. So Canada will point to nil and also be deallocated itself. So then country has no strong references to it. There's only an unowned reference from the city. So then Canada is being deinitialized along with its strong reference to its capital city. And then the capital city has no strong references to it. So Vancouver is being deinitialized. So our memory has been cleaned up and we don't have any memory leaks. But let's say we didn't call this country property an unowned let. So let's play this out partway through the execution of line 30. And the city instance is created, Vancouver, Ottawa has been deallocated. And instead of unowned, let's say we used a strong reference assigned for the property on city called country. So we create this instance, we give it a strong reference to the country, and then Canada is given the capital city of this city. I changed the reference to gray instead of the purple to signify that it's a strong reference. Now, at the end of the scope, Canada is a property that was created within this scope, so it's deallocated, points to nil. We're going to take that out. And because there's a strong reference to the country, it's not going to be deallocated. So you'll notice Canada is not being deallocated down here. This was something that was printed before line 31 was executed. And I can prove that here. I'm going to print out the line. All right, so Ottawa was deinitialized before line 31 was reached. But at the end of this scope, the country is not being deallocated because of the strong reference coming from the city, and the city is not being deallocated because of the strong reference coming from the country. However, if we make this unowned, you will see that Vancouver was deallocated because the strong reference to it went away.